Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on my video. I'm Angela and I wanted to do a topic today that's very important and personal to me. Um, it won't apply to everybody, but anybody that's interested in the medical field or illnesses or whatever will probably be interested. Um, I actually have a disease and it's called Systemic Juvenile Rheumatoid Arthritis. That's a mouthful, and I'll tell you what that is. That was the diagnosis I was given when I was a kid. Now that I'm an adult, I have something called Still's disease. So let me get into what that is. Actually, you know what? I'll tell you how I discovered that I got Still's disease. Um, Still's disease, or systemic diarrhea, which is the sort of compact name, uh, is an autoimmune disorder. And autoimmune disorder is literally a problem in that, and these are like illnesses like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and Crohn's and dermatomyositis and all sorts of illnesses like that are problems in which the immune system has a glitch in it. So, and this glitch, the way it manifests itself is that um, it sort of, so you know what your immune system is. It's a group of cells and stuff that target outside cells. So if you get some sort of infection or something like that, then your immune system activates, it finds out where the issue is, it attacks it, gets rid of it, and that's that. You get over the infection or whatever it may be. Now, if you have an autoimmune disorder, it's a disorder in which your immune system can't really tell what cell is foreign and shouldn't be there and what cell is actually itself, like part of the body. So then what the immune system does is it says, well, since I can't tell if I'm on, I'm just going to attack whatever whatever I need to attack. It just starts attacking its own body, my own body. And so that can cause problems, and it does manifest itself in different ways. Like, I have Still's disease, or systemic diarrhea, is very close to lupus in the way that it shows symptoms, but Crohn's disease, has more inflammation of like the intestines and the stomach area and stuff, where Still's disease doesn't really have as much, and like rheumatoid arthritis doesn't really have as much, stomach doesn't really impact the stomach very much. So it's kind of strange, and most we're not completely certain how people get autoimmune disorders, but lots and lots of people have autoimmune disorders, and I'm one of them. So real quick, how I got my diagnosis was, it was the summer between my third and fourth grade year. My third grade year, I had some health issues where I was just having really, really bad headaches, but I don't ever remember really going to the doctor for that, and I think they just kind of, or maybe I went like, once or twice, but they kind of chalked it up to being, whatever, and that I was going to get through it, and it wasn't, that big of a deal. But when I got into the summer, I started to have really, really bad swollen joints that were very, very painful, and I was having a lot of trouble, like, getting up out of bed. In fact, there was many days that I was just stuck in bed. I would have really, really bad fevers, and they would be like spiking fevers in that, I'd be fine, and then in a very short amount of time, I would get a fever that would like jump all the way up to like 104 and 105, and then it would dip down really low. It would stay there for, an hour or so, and then it would dip down again. And so I would just keep having these spiking fevers over and over. And it would usually happen in the evening. But sometimes when I was really, really flaring, it would happen all throughout the day and stuff like that too. And then I also eventually discovered that I had like a salmon colored rash. It's like a really, really light pink, like blotchy rash just on my trunk and then on my stomach a little bit. And that is something that is pretty, it's a symptom that is pretty true to systemic diarrhea. So once they discovered that, they had a little bit more clues as to what it is. I also had some other symptoms that we found out when I was going through the diagnosis process. The diagnosis process actually took a few months. It took 8 or 9 months to get diagnosed, just because there really is no, there really isn't any tests that strictly, like, if you come out with this positive, this is what you have. It's not like that. With stills, basically what you have to do is eliminate a whole bunch of other illnesses, and then if you have these many symptoms and you've eliminated these other illnesses, then what you're left with is Still's disease. So that's sort of what happened for me. So they were doing all sorts of tests, and then they discovered, I started having some organ problems where my liver was inflamed a couple times, and I actually, the sac sort of around the heart, you have like tissue and stuff around the heart, it was swollen and had some fluid in there. They did a MRI and a CAT scan of like my stomach, and they found that my appendix was really swollen. So they took that out, and they were thinking, maybe that was part of the problem. But, later on we found out that, it was probably just swollen because, it's because that's what happens with stills, is your organs can swell. And then also I would have really, really swollen lymph nodes. You have lymph nodes here and like your armpits and like where your hip is, kind of like on your leg, and then you have two like in your upper back. And I was getting a couple tests of like my chest and stuff because they were trying to figure that out, and they found that I had this massive, huge, huge lymph node. And at one point they were like, oh my gosh, it kind of looks like, cancer, it looks crazy. And then they found out it was just like an abnormally, really hugely swollen lymph node in my back. So that kind of pointed them in the right direction. Then they also had to rule out, like, I had a bone marrow biopsy where they took some bone marrow and tried to see, because they had to rule out like crazy things like leukemia and all sorts of stuff like that. So finally, after, tons and tons of tests, I think the weirdest test I ever had was a sweat test. And it's not what you think would happen. Literally what they do is they put like a patch on your arm, like right here. Actually, I think it might be right here, somewhere around on your arm. And it kind of looks like a blood pressure cuff, and it's really, really warm. It's like a heating pack. And then what they do is they have this like little tiny tube that's like wound up really tight, little tiny, and then they just lay it on there, and like it collects sweat. Like they lay all the heating pad on top of it, and they leave it there for a while. And I can't remember how long it was. It wasn't very long, maybe like a half hour. And then you get all the sweat from all the heat that was right there, and it actually looks blue. And I still to this day do not know what diagnosis or what illness they were trying to rule out with that. But that's probably like the weirdest test I've ever had done. But anyway, so eventually they got to my illness, and so those are sorts of the symptoms. Some people have different symptoms, but that's basically what it is. So I've been living with, I was diagnosed when I was 9, or just about to turn 9, but I've been dealing with it since I was 8. So let's see, and I'm 24 now, so I've had it for many years. What's that, 17 years? I'm not good at math in my head, but that's many years. And so I've kind of learned some tricks, and I've gotten used to some of the medications and stuff. That's the other thing. The medications for Still's disease are pretty much the same as with most autoimmune disorders. But the medications can have their own symptoms in and of itself. I've been on all sorts of stuff, which, you know what, that might be a good, I'm probably going to do that in a different post, because, I've had a lot of people talk to me about, I actually work in the medical field, and so part of my job is to, like, review medications and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of people have talked to me about medications that they've been on when they have, you know, an autoimmune disorder. And, you know, sometimes I can say, you know, I have something too, or I've been on that, and these were my experiences, and I'm not a doctor, but, you know, this just personal experience that I had. And it's sometimes encouraging. It's sometimes, like, I think, because a lot of these medications are really strong. They have a lot of severe side effects potentially, and some of them even sound crazy. Like some of them are chemo drugs, so it can get people like really nervous when you hear that. So I think, and I've been on a huge number of medications, So I kind of want to just do that in a different post, and then it doesn't just apply to people that have Still's disease. Anybody who has an autoimmune disorder will have been on some of these drugs, one of these drugs, many of these drugs. So so catch that. This is my little plug for this next video that I'll do, or I'll do it down the road. But watch for that. So anyway, so growing up with Still's was it was a challenge in some ways. I have a really supportive mom and stepdad and brothers. My brothers are awesome, and I had a really awesome group of friends too, that really made life a lot easier on me. There were times where I was really active and could be in school and be with my friends, but there were times and months would go by where I would be really, really sick and almost be bedridden. And, you know, I kind of, I always know my years in school by, okay, that year was good, that half of the year was bad. Like, I still know all through high school, like, how, when I was in school, what kind of year I had. Like, it's so weird. Like, my sophomore year of high school, I say, was my best year and my worst year. I had so much fun at the beginning of the year, and so I had, you know, a cute boyfriend, and I had awesome friends, and I was able to be like involved and stuff like that. And then long near December and January, I started to get really, really sick, and that was that. And then it just spiraled down. I was so, so depressed, and like that's like a whole nother issue. But it could really take a toll not only on you physically but also emotionally and mentally, just because you know, not everybody understands, especially being in high school and middle school. Like I think the public in general doesn't really understand that young people can still get sick too and still have these things to deal with, and you can't really expect, you know, somebody in middle school who's only really hung out with healthy kids and stuff like that to really understand what you're going through. Thank goodness I had a group of friends that when I was gone, you know, they kind of, you know, were still very supportive and would call me and stuff like that, and understood that I was gone because I was sick and not because, you know, I was all, you know, doing whatever and didn't want to be friends with them or something. But then when I was there, it was like I had never left. Like we were, you know, still very, very close. And so I'm very thankful that I've heard of stories where there are groups of friends that aren't so supportive. So you get sick and then you lose your health and you lose your sanity in some people's cases, and then you lose all of your friends, and it's just a kind of ugly spiral to go into. So I'm going to do a series of videos on just how to survive school and being like younger with an illness. Working in the medical field, I actually work in a field where, and I'm not going to say a whole lot because, you know, HIPAA is a big thing. Anybody working in the medical field or legal field knows about HIPAA, so I'm not going to say anything about anything. But I do work in a department with lots of older people, and you would be surprised how many, or maybe it wouldn't be, but there are so many older people that tell me, they're like, don't get old, or don't get arthritis, or don't get this, or don't get that. And I was like, you know what? I won't. Like, I understand that they're just trying to be like, you know, it's tough to get older and to have all these health issues. because they assume that since I'm younger, I don't have them. And then if like, I am limping or have, some sort of problem or I'm holding myself a certain way because I have a swollen joint, then a lot of them will ask me like, what happened? Did you? And I'm like, well, I actually have rheumatoid arthritis. I don't ever usually say Still's disease because nobody understands what that is. So if I say rheumatoid arthritis, which Still's disease is uh, like systemic symptoms, but also rheumatoid arthritis. So I just say rheumatoid arthritis because that's the easiest way to deal with it. And they're like, you're too young to have arthritis. And I know that they're trying to just, I mean, that's what they know, but it's just surprising to me how many people don't understand that young people do get arthritis. There's lots of young kids that have arthritis, and they're young kids that are as young as, babies and 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and stuff like that. My diagnosis was actually kind of later. Lots of kids get diagnosed with Still's disease or some other form of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, um, way before like 4, 5, 6. So, so yeah, I wanted to do, so I'm going to cut this video because it's already pretty long, but that's what Still's disease is. And then watch for some of my other videos if you're interested. And I'll get more in depth of some medications that I've been on and other sorts of treatments and what reactions I've had. And I can assure you, if you have an autoimmune disorder, you've definitely been on one or more of these medications that I will cover. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you learned something, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.